Hello, sunshines, and welcome to another episode of Directions from Your Spiritual Tour Guide podcast. My name is Shanel Scott. I am your spiritual tour guide and your host of this spiritual journey. Welcome, everyone. Today, our topic is standing out or fitting in. I still don't know if that's exactly the right title for this one, and maybe it'll show up differently in the show notes, but this one kind of came out of nowhere. I should have recorded a podcast on Monday, and I didn't. I have been under the weather for like 3 solid weeks amongst travel and work, and Monday night I was just not feeling it. And I've been pretty good about not forcing, although we'll talk about that. So I just honored that space and took the time to rest. We've also had like a major shift in our house. My husband got a promotion. Congratulations, honey. But it came with a shift change, and that's caused a little bit of upside downness in our schedule. So we've been readjusting this week. Everybody's a little tired. But it has also been a week of a lot of messages for me. And it's been a lot to process. And today it just kind of all hit home in this incredible way. So originally my idea was to talk about flowing. Instead of doing, can we just be? And this totally fits with it, but it just kind of took it to a different level. And I feel like I'm going to be kind of all over the place with sharing it with you today, because that's how big the energy feels. But I've always just honored this place of showing up. And today, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm showing up for you. Sharing my story so that you too can learn from the things and experiences that I've had, and we can take this spiritual journey together. So where to begin? I think, so the topic of being instead of doing, was one that really hit home for me. A client a few weeks ago said to me, Shanel, I finally stepped into the flow. And it was a super proud moment for me, because that's huge. That is a huge accomplishment. And we make it sound really simple and easy to do. But the reality is it's a huge leap of trust to just step into the flow. But once you get there, the magic that you feel, the ease, the peacefulness, the knowingness is just incredible. And it's something that you can never come back from. Once you've been, you just want to be there. It is this absolute place of being. There is no need to force here. It's just this incredible thing that feels so incredibly good. But being in the flow isn't necessarily easy for everyone, or even accessible maybe for some people. But I am a firm believer we can get anywhere when we choose to want to get there. So learning how to acknowledge the flow of energy, to acknowledge the inward whispers, to listen to your intuition and the messages from the universe, the sign symbols that are all around us. All of these things lead us to this place of the flow. We get caught up in needing to have a plan and having a certain way of getting there. And I learned very early on in my spiritual journey that the universe's plan on how we get from A to B isn't always the same plan that we have to get from A to B. But it is our openness to see the change in direction that is the flow. I'm sure I've shared this story before, but when I did my Reiki Master Teacher, it was a lot of money for me as a single mom to do. As well, it was a time commitment. It was quite a few days that I would have to spend to do the training over several weeks, and I had to plan it into my life. I had 3 little kids. It was really important for me to plan that out, to figure it out. So at the same time, I sat down and thought, okay, how many clients do I need to be able to come up with this extra money to pay for this course, to be able to get this master teacher? And like literally the next day, I got a letter from the credit card company opening my line of credit on my credit card, to which I groaned, stomped my feet a little bit, and then exhaled and said thank you with a ton of gratitude, and knew that those clients weren't going to show up. Yes, some of them were, but the majority of them were not, because I had to trust in the process. I had to trust that taking this next step was going to create a bigger income flow for me, and that it would all pay itself off in the end, which it did. But man, was I like, I don't like using credit cards. I don't like being in debt. I like, having the money to pay for things. So that was a hard one. That was a really hard one to just be like, okay, I can fight this, but the reality is in the long run, I'm going to still have to put it on my credit card and just have gratitude for that. Gratitude that is available to me. So that was like one of those big lessons in life. But I've continued to carry that forward. And there are definitely times that I fight up against it. Leaving my last job was really hard for me, even though I very much knew that it was no longer serving a purpose for me, that it was time for me to move on. And the only way to grow this business was to stop running someone else's business for them. It was, I fought against it, and it definitely got worse. The situation, the feelings, the stress, all of those things just kept on compiling. And the funny part is I left a corporate job to manage a yoga studio, and I have a management background, because I wanted to grow my business. I didn't leave that corporate job to take on something, the same. I left it because this was important to me to grow. So definitely I stepped into the flow to be able to make those decisions and felt really good about them. But then when that didn't serve the purpose that it was supposed to, I just held on to it for dear life instead of releasing it and letting it go. So let's come to today a little bit. So I had coffee today with a friend of mine who, it's like she always gives me permission to show up just as I am and who I am. And I so appreciate her for that. And she's not the only one, but today just hit home in a different way. And I think it's because, I had one of those conversations with another friend the night before who, again, appreciates and claps up showing up as I am, and is always there to hold my hand on a spiritual journey, and it is absolutely reciprocated. As well, I had a reading this week from someone, and I haven't done that in a very long time. I just don't trust everybody. I'm not going to use the word trust. That's a bad word. I just haven't had the urge to get a reading from someone else in a very long time. Yes, I've wanted to get a reading, but there hasn't been anybody that I felt connected to that, other than like friends who we read for each other, somebody outside my own circle that I connected with in a way that was something that I wanted to honor. So all those things kind of happened. My husband's shift changed this week to move into his new position. It's just been an incredibly interesting week. And today, as we were talking about different issues that we've been working through and coming up, I just had this huge kind of awakening in my soul that I couldn't ignore. And the whole drive home from having coffee, it was like download after download after download of things that I just needed to shift and change and honor. And it was kind of like the heck yeah. You know, they say either it's like a heck yes or it's a no. And I think I've been fighting some of those no's and trying to do things in a certain way because I felt that's what I needed to do to grow my business, to offer to my clients in a way that I thought they needed to be serviced. But the reality is it feels so different. When I let go of that today, because there's a piece of my work that I've been holding on to that hasn't felt good in a while, and I really feel like I'm forcing it. And today I'm like, I'm letting it go. And I'm going to fill it with something else that fills my cup in a different way. That feels like I'm flowing instead of forcing. With the thing that I'm giving up, I feel like I'm forcing it. I feel like I'm pushing myself to do that piece. And it doesn't feel good. Once upon a time it did. But as I've shifted and changed and what I need to do and how I want to show up has changed, so has what I have to offer. That decision was empowering. And it's a simple one. But me really honoring the fact that that no longer resonates, that no longer feels good, and that it is okay for me to cut that off and let it go without needing to apologize to anyone is empowering. Hugely empowering. It's like I chose to take this 2-foot jump back into the flow. And instead of sitting on the side and kicking my feet, I jumped into that tubie with my drink in hand and said, I'm going to float. I am going to flow with this. I am going to do what feels good. And I'm going to show up in the ways that feel right for me. And it's not about making the next reel or TikTok that goes viral. It is not about, booking and having a huge wait list. It is about honoring myself in a way that allows me to show up for you to the fullest. I know that my job here, my purpose here, is to help guide others on this journey. And if I can just show one person at a time how to step into the flow and to find that magic and to just trust that it's all unfolding, then I'm doing my job. I wish sometimes that I could take this feeling and let you experience it. If you could feel what it feels like to step into the flow, you would want it more. And it was funny because going back to this client who said, I did it. She thought she was in the flow. She thought she was in the flow and it felt good. And then she really stepped into the flow and she was like, whoa. And we can't always be in the flow. Like, I definitely step in and out of the flow, but I know where it is and how to get back to it. It's when I get disconnected that I step out of it. And I definitely feel like over the last little while, I've been disconnected. I've traveled twice. The second trip was a lot of traveling in a very short period of time for an incredibly good reason. I also was incredibly sick throughout that, and it's just lingered. And I definitely have felt this disconnect. The day my husband told me about his promotion, I had this like instantaneous excitement and then this like kaboom drop of like, oh my gosh, he's got to work night shift. And it disconnected me again, as every time I went to plug in, I felt like it was just being ripped back out again and I was being taken back outside of my body. Regardless of how much I was doing to get myself plugged back in again, I just couldn't get there. So yeah, I stepped out of the flow. But then I have moments that I have, like I did this week. The session I had on Monday. Thank you so much, Kevin Whitaker. I'm so grateful for getting to connect with you and meet you finally after I was on your wait list for a long time. It was such a pleasure. And I am so grateful for the time that I got to spend with you. I'm so grateful for my boss and the people that I work with and the gratitude of those people and the love and support of those people. I am incredibly, blessed to have my sweet soul sister, Penny. So check out Soul Food Psychotherapy. She's incredible. Yes, she's a therapist, but she is my friend, not my therapist. Although some days I feel like maybe my therapist too. Soulful conversations with her and the amazing Anita Kaiser. So grateful for the time we spent today together. There is so many amazing people in my life that have created this shift and this opportunity to plug back in. That when I felt like I couldn't get plugged in myself, there are people that just said the things that I needed to hear because I was open to it to get myself back to a place where I feel like I'm standing on 2 feet again, where I feel grounded and plugged in and connected to the divine and listening. And man, have I been listening today. It's almost exhausting. I really struggled to even come in and do this podcast because I was so tired from the amount of information that was being downloaded to me today and all the things that I needed to do to get back on track. This isn't about competing. This isn't about being the best. This isn't about so many things. It's not. This is about showing up. Like I said, this is about celebrating. I celebrate small business. I celebrate every little milestone that I have. And all of those things help me to stay in the flow. So today, the big question is, do you try to stand out by being you, by being your authentic self, by stepping into the flow even though everybody else is instead jumping off the cliff? Are you able to stand in your own? Are you able to listen to that inward voice that tells you which way to go? And when we stop listening, when we dig in our heels and we fight against it, that's when things go wrong. When we don't learn the lesson, the universe gives it back to us again to make sure that it's bigger the next time around in hopes that you're going to get it. And I always laugh because there's this saying about like the universe gives us things that we've already accomplished to just make sure that we're not being a dumbass. And I think that's totally true. Like, did you actually learn the lesson or are we going to do this again? Nah, I learned the lesson, here we go. But then there's those people that were being handed the lesson and it's like they know they're being handed the lesson and they're like, yeah, putting up the blinders. I don't want to see it. I'm not going to acknowledge it. I just want to kind of keep going where I am. I'd rather be uncomfortable in this thing because it's familiar than be uncomfortable to get out of it. The discomfort of moving from point A to point B is temporary. The discomfort of staying where you are is far greater than any discomfort it will take for you to get out of it. And I laugh because I always say it so kindly. And Anita today was like, you're much nicer than I am about that. And I said, yeah, like some days I want to just say, if you don't start to learn your lesson, you are going to get karate chopped in the face and simultaneously kicked in the knee. And it's just going to be a bad scene. But I always say it really nicely. But the reality is the lesson gets bigger. It gets more intense. It gets harder. It has more effect. It tries to rock our life in a very different way. And I've been there. I've dug in my heels and gone, I'm not doing this. But I learned my lesson a long time ago. So I now choose to listen when the universe is talking. Not always on the first time around. But I choose to step into the flow. I choose to listen to what's inside. If it doesn't feel good, I'm not interested. If it doesn't feel good because it's something new and slightly uncomfortable to get me to the other side to something better, I'm all in. I am all about the soul work that I need to do to grow and to evolve and take myself to the next level. And in my sessions, that's where I take you. I help you find the clarity that you need. I help you to see where the issue is and help you to discover the solution. I don't do the work for you. I just help you get there. You have to do the hard work, just like I've had to do the hard work. But again, are you willing? Are you willing to stand up and to recognize when you are stepping into the flow of things, when you are open to receiving, when you are open to the messages, the signs, the symbols, when you are open to flowing in a different direction because that's where you are being directed? Or do you just want to fit in? Do you just want to do what everybody else is doing? I've never really been that person, I guess. Yes, it's nice to fit in, but I've always kind of danced to the beat of my own drum and been okay with that. Now, on the same breath, I would definitely say it's not that I didn't want to fit in, but I didn't want to stand out in the crowd necessarily. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. But I've learned over the years that it's okay to take off the cloak. It's okay to stand up and to say, I am me. This is me. I am Shanel. I am a spiritual tour guide. I am here on this incredible spiritual journey with you. I am here to take you and me to this next level and to enjoy every single solitary minute of it. I am willing to stand up, to be me unapologetically, to step into the flow and figure out where it's going to take me. I shouldn't say figure out, trust where it's going to take me. And I hope that you can find that too. Because doing and forcing isn't necessarily getting us to where we need to be. The hustle, the pushing, it doesn't work. But really showing up, being present, being open, being aware, takes you on a much easier journey. Like today. No notes, no plan, but I knew it was time to sit down and talk to you. To share this message of stepping into the flow, of standing out in the crowd and being proud of who you are. We are all unique and beautiful in our own spectacular ways. We all have so much to offer each other and to this world. So let's rise up. Let's reach out a hand to each other and lift each other up. There is no need for competition. There is more than enough to go around. So share. Mentor. Love. Trust. Gather your community. I love this one. Have the courage to go first and light a fire so your tribe can find you. What if we all just stepped into the flow and took care of each other? Wouldn't that just be amazing? So to end this podcast today, I will say my next thing I'm going to do today is to sit down with myself, with my journal, with my pens, with my oracle cards, maybe some crystals, and even light a piece of incense. I am going to clear away the things that I feel like I have been forcing in my life over the last little while. I am going to embrace being healthy and being in the flow. I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to stand up loud and proud, and I'm going to share who I am and what I do. There is no hiding in this spiritual journey. It's about shining bright. So I am going to light my light. And I hope that you shine your light just as bright, because we are stronger together. And my blessing for you today, my wish for you today, is that you too can find the flow. From my heart and soul to yours. Have an amazing day.